In lesson 27, Dobson teaches you various ways to think about questions. The first thing to think about with questions is question words, by which we mean interrogatives. The one you've learnt so far in form is tis. You've learned tis meaning a, or certain, or some, as an indefinite pronoun. If you, however, add an acute accent to the nominative form, then it becomes the interrogative question who. Ti in the neuter will then be what, or possibly even why. And that's particularly true in the phrase dear ti. Remember how you decline tis? It's also your third declension paradigm. Tis, tina, tinos, tini, tines, tinas, tinon, tisi, ti, tinos, tini, tina, tina, tinon, tisi. Then you've got a whole range of words beginning with pi. So little words beginning with pi are quite often interrogatives. Let's also think about accentuating them. Potter, por, poo, and pothen. Note that the short vowels have got acutes and the longs have got circumflexes in this case. Potter means when in a question, or using hotter as when in a statement. Pors, how, and then think of words like horse or hootos as a way of giving you thus or so. Poo is where, pothen, where from, whence. That fen is always going to mean from as a suffix. So you will see it in other places and it's always going to mean from. There is also a word to where that's not given to you in this. Poi would be whither, to where. So if you want to complete your trio, poo, pothen, poi, where, static, pothen, from where, poi, to where. You're also given a couple of verbs, oida, dunamai. These are what we call defective verbs. They're slightly strange, and I'm putting a separate video up about them. You've also been given apokrinomai. Apokrinomai means I reply. I'm pretty sure I learnt it as apokrino. Apokrinomai is middle. Apokrino is active. If you look this up in the dictionary, you'll find that Older Greek is more likely to use apokrino. Later Greek is more likely to use apokrinomai. The word is in flux and sort of changes its voice status through the history of Greek. And this leads it to it being truly called a deponent verb. It would be called a passive deponent. Its endings are middle and passive, but its meaning is never passive. What that means is you're going to see apekrithere in the indicative and apokrithes is a participle. So apekrithere is the aorist indicative. Apokrithes is the aorist participle. That theta, eta, theta, epsilon is your passive marker. But you're going to translate it as active, whatever happens. So apekrithere He replied. Apocryphes, having replied, or in context you might well find yourself saying in reply or something like that. So apokrynomai is a very peculiar verb. It takes a range of middle and passive endings. Whatever you see translated as active. It has other quirks about how it gets used, but you'll become more familiar with those as you read more text. You've got your straightforward interrogatives, but you've also got slanted questions. Now, for this, I'm going to give you a cross-reference as well. See Duff Chapter 10 and the video number 2, the first 4 minutes and 50 seconds. So for a full explanation of these, see the other material on this page. But in summary, take a phrase such as, you do know the time, don't you? You are my friend, aren't you? You don't mean that, do you? Each of these has an implied answer. We're implying, yes, of course you know the time. Yes, of course you're my friend. No, of course I don't mean that. In Greek, you can do a similar kind of slanting. You can use ou to infer a yes answer or lead a yes answer, and mer for a no answer. And this will be mer plus the indicative, which you are not going to find anywhere else. So if you see mer plus the indicative, this is what's going on. You've got a slanted question that is leading your listener, assuming that they're going to give the answer yes and no. That answer can be subverted, but it is coded into the language that it is expected, and you may have a separate strategy then to counterbalance that and allow meaning to come into conflict with grammatical structure, which is, of course, a strategy in its own right.